So I am a data person. So if you talk to me, you probably see my brain running a million miles an hour because I'm thinking about things that either data can be qualitative or quantitative. So like when you're talking to me, I'm probably thinking about, is there data behind this? Is there facts? Is there research or something? So I want to start with how, just in general, data is pivotal to everyone's career. And just in life. So I'll just give this example of, I went to purchase a new truck recently, and I'm a data person. So these, they all assume as you go to a sales, you go to buy a vehicle, they think you don't know anything. So I came in with the facts. I was like, what is this vehicle? Why is this vehicle listed as number 5? Like, it's not top. It's really not. So they were like, okay, well, let's talk through it. So they're running down the facts. I had like 23 questions. I was just spitballing these questions back to back. This guy comes up, he's like, do you work at a dealership? No, I don't. But I do my research. So all in all, I was consistently using a lot of data to inform, how did I come about making this decision to buy this particular truck? I really wanted, my dream Barbie truck was a Range Rover. I mean, not a Range Rover, a Wrangler. And I just wanted this black matted out Wrangler. It was not it for me. I got inside, I was like, oh, there's no tech in here. Wasn't gonna work. So I did all this research. I went and found some website that lists like every deal that someone has ever gotten on their truck, and they submit it. And I was like, oh, this is perfect, because I know you got 11% off the MSRP, you got 6. So it was really cool. But what I learned was, wow, I really am a data geek outside of work. So from that, I learned also, this talk kind of came inspired from how data literacy in general is very inspirational to how we pursue our day-to-day. And our day-to-day especially is big in our career. So in this moment, I immediately start thinking, I'm always thinking like 5 steps ahead. I'm doing the calculations in my brain. The finance person is asking me a number, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's an extra $23 a month, right? And they're just like really shocked, but that's just how my data brain works. So when I think about reaching your destiny, right, it's not going to be algebraic. We're not going to go through all these calculations. Today, I'm going to talk to you about like different frameworks for reaching your destiny, and it's not going to be in discrete math. So if you are as excited as Netflix was about raising their $23 price, we'll talk about how you can leverage the things like using data and having the confidence to know, I'm going to raise my price and know that I'm going to be okay. So we are going to start with your career coach, right? That's this famous person. They're telling you, hey, you are going to get there. We're going to get you there. And these are the tools that are going to get you to this place that you want to be. Your Coach Carr, as Bring On said, Coach Carr is very confident in knowing that he's the perfect person to get you from point A to point B. These are experts, and in their mind, everything that you want can be accomplished. And sometimes it's just an aptitude test away. So typically, when you think about your career, all of the data that flows into your career are, you're making this decision, and this career coach is there to tell you there's some decision that you need to make about your career. It may be influenced by your attitude. So what do you think about your career? Did you do that aptitude test in high school? Does anybody remember what they told you that you'd be? A teacher. That's better than a brick builder. So that's a lot better than someone I just knew, they didn't really know engineer, but they knew bricks, build houses, architect. Cool. So there is some decisions that you have to make traditionally. This is the process. So you have a career decision that is moderated by this career coach who's a quote unquote expert. They're experts, but like experts in what? Because they haven't done that job. So I really think about, this is actually a really cool article about how learning analytics and learning data is influenced, and this is the process flow for like how you go about pursuing data. So in this process, they're looking to use the power of machine learning and AI, but they need to understand how people operate. So there's this article, this research paper about how career-based decisions, who your employer is, what is their demand, what are their requirements for that job? And did you take that aptitude test? Did you pass that test? Does the aptitude test really matter these days? But also, what do you truly value, right? So these help you reflect and make informed decisions. There's some data in what is the career? What is the career outlook? What are the requirements? But all in all, you get to this point where you make the decision and then your career coach or advisor just tells you, like, this is so inspiring. I made it. Is it really inspiring though? Because all they tell you is, wow, you did a great job, and sometimes you're not there. So there's this new framework that suggests that maybe, and it looks really small up here, but maybe you start to think about it from the lens of a community perspective, right? So as a community, do you start to get involved? A lot of us are starting to get involved by going online and researching through community outreach. So that could be, are you on TikTok watching videos? Every time you watch a video about a software engineer job or what's happening at Netflix and why they're raising their prices, and the way that I work is, why is Netflix raising their prices? What influenced them to raise their prices? And then, well, did machine learning go into that? That's how my brain operates. And so I end up in this spiral and try to find content relative to that. So that self-discovery of, I'm interested in this thing. How do I find this thing? How do I find people who also do this thing? Comes a lot from community. The community could also be on Twitter. After you understand where you're coming from, is there a framework that you can follow? So in this framework that you see, this is a lot, it's saying a lot. So just want to go back really quick to this image. Essentially, it's saying at the top left, your sociocultural community helps you influence do you have enough self-efficacy to understand what you are motivated by to enter your career? A lot of that means, what are your intrinsic motivators? How many people are motivated by money? That's a big motivator. A lot of people are actually motivated extrinsically by things that give them a reward. But some people have to be motivated intrinsically. I was just talking to Kim about this. Like, what is something that you're actually passionate about or interested in so that you can continue to do this thing? And that feeds into self-efficacy, which you then take your attitude towards the career, your values, and you say, well, how do I get into this place and formulate this process before I start to pick up new skills? And a lot of the things that I do online is share resources for gaining new skills. So I tell people, you need to first understand who you are, what you're motivated by, because that will, if you start to say, like, wow, I see a lot of people talking about cyber, GRC. That's what everybody's been talking about lately. Why I posted a post about GRC, it's just going and everyone sees that GRC people make $140,000. I need to get in GRC. Do you though? I just, maybe you don't even like cyber. So I'm just interested in why you chose GRC. And that when I say that, people think, well, you said it was good, but are you actually intrinsically or intrinsically motivated by it? Because that'll be how you push further. So I say that to say, using your community, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's Reddit. I love actually reading Reddit because I think people are real raw on Reddit. And it gives me a lot more insight into, do I want to do this thing? Watching more videos like TikTok on Instagram or Facebook groups where people are a little bit more interesting around and they'll say what they mean sometimes. Or just Slack groups, right? So before you do that, there's always a way that you can continuously upskill. So once you understand these motivators, how do you find it? There's resources out there for you. There's data that exists that says that this career is paying this much. This career's outlook is going to exceed, and by 2025, there's going to be jobs. It's an ongoing learning process, and it requires a lot of self-reflection, self-evaluation. That's something that a lot of people don't take the time to do. Sit and reflect with it, and we'll talk about that later. But before you go into it, I just want to say there's always a way for you to get to where you want to be. There's different ways to get there, and the process that you take is your own. So when we think about it, this is just a post that went up recently, and someone said, this my Udemy and Coursera budget is really stretched right now, and I was like, I looked at him and I'm like, oh, he lives in New York. Do you know Coursera has a $12 million bucket of funds to get people Coursera licenses, and so these exist. So this learning analytics process, when you take community and then you look at, well, what's the data that surrounds that, right? There's money out there. There's money that can get you to the next place of your role. So this is where I say, how do you empower yourself to really think about careers or personal ventures like me, a data scientist? So are you feeling this? Or does this resonate with any of you? I think community and data in general has changed the way that we inherently think about our careers. During the process of COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people joined communities. So it did feel like, well, I want to do this thing. I didn't have friends or family that were doing this thing, and therefore I never pursued this thing. But now you can go out, come to events like this, and say, who else is doing this thing or can talk to me about this and get me connected. And so when you start to think about it, I want you to first say, before you even get there, start thinking about, I know it's stressful, but start thinking about it like me, a data scientist. I have framework as well. So at work, I first have to understand, what exactly do you want me to solve? People say, I want a machine learning model. And I'm like, great, do you know what they do? And most don't know what they do. They just know, well, I saw ChatGPT does this, or I saw, Netflix does it. And I asked them, do you know what you want to solve? Do you understand the objective? Like, what is happening now? What is that process? So once I understand from the stakeholder, it's a long process of, okay, let me help you understand your problem so you can help me build the model for you. And that process then becomes a lot of me telling them your process currently is not working. And a lot of it goes back into, they have to go back to the drawing board and redo their process. As an example of that, I have a product right now we're building, a machine learning model. It's more NLP model, so natural language processing model. They want us to standardize some data. Well, we can't standardize the data until we know all of the different variances of data. So we have a field, one field. In that one field, there's a team of 20. Ask me how many different ways people input data in that one field. From dates to acronyms. In this one field, there's dates. Dates can be FY 2023, 12/2023, 12-2023, 12-2023, and so on and so forth. There's about 20 to 25 variations of how that's input on top of everything else. So you have to understand that. And then where does the data come from? Making sure you understand where the data is, where it's coming from, how it can be used to influence that project. Is it relevant? And then we have to prepare that data. A lot of the work that we do is actually in this stage. How do you prepare to build that machine learning model? You have to have data that's clean enough to have garbage in, garbage out, right? The data has to go in clean for it to come out clean. If not, data has to go in, it can go in dirty, but it has to be clean in a way that when it's fed into the training of the model, and when we train, we have an output that is clean cut. So if you all have been using ChatGPT recently, think about this. All of this data is fed into this machine learning model, and this model has to rank how, for each word that is typed on this screen, is that word similar to the context in which you prompted it, right? So there's a score. And then it has to look from the previous word to the predicted next word. Does it flow? Is it giving you enough context? Is it clear enough that your sentence is very well understood? So if your data coming in isn't clean and you haven't cleaned it to a state where the words make sense, can you get to the root of that word? Sometimes you have to what's called lematize or stematize the word and get to the Greek word of it to make sure that we understand what it means. So a lot of that is happening. But in this process, sometimes I have to go back and get feedback. I have to go back, hey, did this work? Does this look right? Is this good? And then we can start to build our model. That's when we can say, well, let me understand what features exist. What do I need to add to the data to make it rich, to really get to this output? That for example, in this NLP model, let's just say also ChatGPT, I have to add a score field that says that this is the rank or the score that this word gives, that says that it's very relative to the statement that was provided. And once I do that, once we build this model, we get all the rich data, we enrich it even more, we start to deploy it, and we start to operationalize it by getting it out, testing it, getting feedback, continuous feedback. And that process is very iterative. So that feedback comes in, and guess what? Some of the customers are happy, some of them are not. Some people are like, I got this, but I don't understand how to, like, what does it do? Like, we did all this work in 6 months to get this one column that says this is a high score. Yes, that's what it took us 6 months to do. And people sometimes don't understand that, but when you break it down to them, it's helpful. So how do you use this in your career? So start by defining, like, what are your career goals? What is the metric of success? So in this example of, I want to get into a GRC career, is there a metric of success that you want to land that role, or start small, milestones, finish that course, finish that certification? Start by defining what is it that you need to get to where you go. So define that objective. Start then collecting data about yourself. Who are you? What do you like? Are you even a tech person? Like, some people don't even like tech. Do you use tech in your daily lives? Maybe you're like, I like to just talk about it. I don't really like using it. That is where you start to really hone in on who you are. And once you do that, you start gathering feedback. Sometimes you might want to ask other people, do you see me as someone that's interested in this thing? And that is where you bring in all the data and you start to clean it up. So that could be cleaning up your LinkedIn, cleaning up your GitHub, really refining who you are and what you want people to know you for. And that is where this starts to influence your decisions and how you appear to other people, so that they can then say, oh, this person is highly interested. If your LinkedIn talks all about machine learning and AI, am I bringing you in for a cyber role? No, because the words that you use on that profile don't coincide with the roles that I'm looking for. And when LinkedIn is running its algorithms, guess what? It's making inferences. Those inferences, I don't know if you all have done this, but again, Data Geek here. I went in and downloaded my data on LinkedIn. They didn't give me all my data. How did I know? Because they have a document that says this is all the data we collect. So why didn't you give me all my data? So I had to submit a support ticket to get the rest of the data that they did not give. And so the support ticket comes back. 3 months later, they give me the data. After I have went back and forth, I'm like, no, this is the website. These are the terms and conditions. So the data basically is one of the biggest files is there's a file that makes inferences on your profile. So because I didn't have my school year filled out, one of the inferences was that I was still a student. Very interesting. The other inference was that I was, when I tested this on a friend's profile, they had just the job descriptions of the jobs. So they just literally said that they're product management. The roles that they actually did were more in business, strategy, and operations, but because they put product in a couple places, they just bucket them into product. Well, also in mine, it said that when I did not put 2 of my roles on my profile, it bucketed me into entry level until I changed the role. So I tweaked the title on my LinkedIn, and then it changed, and I went back through this process 6 months later. It bucketed me into senior. So I kept playing with this, and I'm looking at the inferences. It's also telling me what I should be getting in my news feed. And so it's just really interesting, my feed, my curated feed versus other people's feed. But you really have to clean up your profiles so that you can get to the data that you want. If you're really interested, I also recommend just downloading your LinkedIn data. And you can also probably do this on Twitter. I think the Twitter data actually came back with everything that I needed. So I don't know if that was before it became like X. I don't know. But yes, so clean it up. Take this data and start to develop your niche. This is where you're building your model, right? You're building your model. You're building yourself up. This could be training. When I say niche because you could be a generalist. Consultants are generalists. I was a consultant for years. But then they told me after a year in consulting, you need to niche down. We need to know you for something. You need to build your brand in some space. I chose analytics. And this is because once you have built your brand around that, you are continuously refining that brand. So when I'm training a model and I'm giving it the output, that model is continuously being trained, but those outputs change here and there. So as you do that, you'll get more alignment to what is coming to you, what's being fed to you. So this also means refining the content that you want to see, the content you don't want to see. Start doing that. I don't like this content, because then the algorithms on platforms such as Twitter, such as LinkedIn, TikTok, they can then refine it to things that you actually want to see and things that are going to fuel you to keep pushing yourself forward in the path that you want to go. And once you continuously do that, start putting that plan into action. That could be applying for these roles. Once you've organized your GitHub, finding different projects that are a little bit harder to do. Every time you post a project, what's a little bit harder and something that you can contribute? As people are reaching out to you, are they roles that you're interested in? Are these roles aligned to where you want to go? Is there a skill set? For me personally, when I had outreach coming to me, I was like, I don't want to do this work. Why do you keep reaching out to me? And I looked at my LinkedIn and I said, okay, this is what I have on my LinkedIn, but because I have, there's an approach, I have a lot, and then there's minimum. So you'll see some people get outreach and they only have a title and no description under each job. A lot of those people are software engineers because they know that they are not going to put the effort into really building out their LinkedIn. But it works effectively because a lot of recruiters are going to take that chance for individuals that they know, oh, this job, this company, they must be doing something great. So, but if somebody doesn't know your company, if it's a startup, you have to have some type of description, 1-liner, 2-liner, explaining what you did, what the impact of it was. Or you can go all out where you just throw a bunch of keywords, edit, put your whole resume in there, and see what comes back. So I say all this to say, when you start to evaluate your career, it's gonna give you, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I think I'm doing it right. I'm not sure. You might be a little uneasy. That's because you don't know if this is actually putting you into the place that you want to go yet. But you'll start to see the results. If you are a little saddened about it, continuously reassess and readjust. Go back. A lot of the work I do, I get all the way to model operations, and I go all the way back to data acquisition. Because then I find out I don't have the right data. Maybe I wasn't as informed as I thought. A lot of people say, y'all, I tried that software thing. I don't like to code. I don't like it. I don't like Python. Let me go back. What's something that I could do like less Python? And I said, maybe you should try SQL. And a lot of people are like, nah, that's code too. So I personally love SQL over Python. So I always tell people that. But that's where you continuously reassess and refine. So then you get to this place where you're like, I'm moving, I'm shaking, I'm getting it, I'm learning, I understand it a little bit more. And that's that place where you're starting to refine your what's coming into you. What are you seeing? And you start to love it a little bit more every day. So if you're struggling to start, I want you to say, is it a you problem? I don't know. But this could be you not knowing what your motivators are. How are you motivated? Are you intrinsically motivated or are you extrinsically motivated? So if you actually enjoy something, if you enjoy doing it, that's an intrinsic motivation. Do you actually enjoy building apps? Do you actually enjoy helping people with their strategy? I have a friend who has a logistics and trucking business. I actually enjoy, because it's not tech related at all, but helping him structure and reframe and build that business, because it's something that makes me I feel instant gratification every time I'm like, hey, did you know that you can do this? Or I identify gaps, or I do a small audit on something. Sometimes this week I built a spreadsheet for him that automated his payroll process. So like 17 hours a week he was spending on payroll, and now it's 2. So that's something that for me, it's a friend. It's something I saw him struggling with every week. And I'm like, why are you spending so much time doing this? So that's what I did. And it gave me gratification because even though it was something as simple as a Google form to Google Sheets, those Google Sheets are working. So I don't know if you've all heard about levels.fyi, but they started on a Google Sheet. And that Google Sheet took them for years. And so even last night, I was like, I need to figure out how to do these arrays because these queries are not working. But that's because I enjoyed it. I would spend hours working on that because I enjoy it. I see the gratification. I see the happiness that he feels that he has more time with his family, with his new son. And then there's something that's extrinsic. Are you paying me? Like, are you paying me? Am I getting an award? Do I go on a vacation? What's happening here? And so sometimes it's not extrinsic with my friend, but with these companies and these jobs, you want to know what am I getting from this? What's going to come around to me? Am I going to be branded in this space? Am I going to be known for something? This is where you have to really hone in and say, this is my motivator. And then don't forget to lean on your community. Your community could be anything. We were just talking about ADHD back there, right? People who talk about topics that you're interested in. Your topics could be tech. I think these were my top posts that I guess went viral, they call it. These were the top posts that had the highest impressions. And all of these posts are not all the same. One, I was talking about Airbnb. I also helped him with his Airbnb business, and I'm researching, and I said, wow, they are really cutting down on Airbnbs. You can't be an Airbnb host. You can't have more than 2 properties. It's a lot. But then I also talk about, hey, guess what? You can get into this program, learn cyber with IBM, no experience. Oh, also they have apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are paying thousands and thousands of dollars per month, and we didn't know it. But then I talked about where you see this Oprah meme. Just this week, I went to the doctor and I got in and out in 15 minutes. I was flabbergasted. I was like, did you care for me? Like, did you make sure that I get what I got? I just didn't know. But she went in and she looked at my notes and she looked at what I submitted. And as soon as I got in there, I was like, the doctor's in here? What you doing in here? But your community is where you start, right? Who has similar interest experiences so that you can feed in on, well, what happened with you? What was your path? What roadblocks did you have? Don't forget to lean in on your community because it can really push you to make that change that you want. And you can start reaching your destination by really taking the time to ask the right questions and get that data in return. Thank you.